are the hosts of the Tradier's Trader's Edge, which airs every Wednesday at 3 o'clock Central Time, 4 o'clock Eastern Time. Bobby, how are you?
Good. I've gotten used to doing Eastern Time first. And now I actually agree with all those obnoxious New Yorkers who also always told us when I was in Chicago to stop saying Central Time first.
Nope. Chicago time. The universe revolves around Chicago. Everything else.
I would disagree with you that hard, to be honest, on this particular point.
Okay. Let's talk crude oil and let's talk natural gas. What are the influences right now in crude? What is your call for the first part of 2024 and the full 2024, knowing full well that you and I are both traders, short and medium term. We have long-term investments as well, but what's your thoughts?
So I'll give you the first quarter of crude oil. I'm going to call it aggressively sideways. Now, the reason is because the fundamentals are pointed lower, right? And one of the things I said in my last bunch of interviews and shows is that there was a rally in crude oil, I would sell it, and I didn't. We had a little bit of a spike rally a few days back, and then we had a couple of days lower, and today what are we today? We're up about 40 basis points. Who cares? 0.4%. The reason I'm saying aggressively sideways is the OPEC report that came out today, right? And that OPEC report basically says the OPEC reports, Jimmy, usually lean toward higher crude oil prices, and this one didn't. And it seems to me like it might be used as sort of a baseline or an excuse for more production cuts in the future if OPEC can actually set that up.
So what do you think about when it comes time for us to refill the SPR? Are we ever going to refill the SPR?
The longer we wait with prices here in the low 70s, high 60s, the more I think that it's somewhat deliberate. Now, what could that be? Well, it could be the pushing of green energy. It could be the idea that U.S. producers are going to produce. That would be the positive side of it. The U.S. producers are going to continue to produce, contrary to what the CEO of ExxonMobil says. So I have to lean on the idea that it might be a little bit nefarious in order to push green energy, but the cold snap you guys just went through up north kind of throws a wrench in that.
Now, I'm experiencing this cold snap. It is nasty cold here, and it has been for about 5 days. Have natural gas prices, which I haven't traded natural gas in a couple of years, have natural gas prices responded to that? What's your thoughts on gas?
So initially they did, and then as you guys were in the midst of the beginning of the cold snap, natural gas prices fell by 10.5%. And the reasoning being is the natural gas producers have done a really good job keeping supply levels up. Let's relate that to the SPR, right? Natural gas suppliers were able to release the surpluses they've had over the last 18 months and the increase in the supplies and storage they've had over the last 18 months to absorb it. Now we're in the midst of an El Nino, right? El Nino typically means colder and wetter in the south. I can vouch for that. It has been that. And warmer in the north during winter. Maybe the beginning of winter you had that. I'd say you had a fairly mild introduction to winter. And now this cold snap, light at the end of the tunnel, mid next week? Going to be back in the 30s in January and February, at least so far. So I think that's the reason why, and it's likely to continue into summer with weak natural gas demand overall.
Last question. Is natural gas in the crosshairs of the environmentalists as much as crude oil is?
Not as much, but it is. And this is one of the reasons that I think that it's not thought of logically on their side, simply because natural gas is the cleanest burning hydrocarbon fossil fuel, and it is a potential with nuclear, a good, easy to use transition fuel, and they're not pushing it. And I think that just has to do with drilling.
Final question. I know I said the last question was the last question, but I had one more. Crude at the end of 2024 and natural gas at the end of 2024, higher or lower than where they are now?
Crude higher, natural gas lower.
Got it. Natural gas always a widowmaker. After it gets a rally, everyone thinks it's going higher, and then they bust it up. All right, thanks. This has been a Tradier Rundown. Jim Uriel and Bob Iacchino. Feel free to catch us on our show, 3 o'clock Central Time, because it's the only time anyone cares about, 3 o'clock Central Time on Wednesdays.